This month on Doing the Most, it's Dry January, where we make fermented sodas. And on this episode of Doing the Most, we are making non-alcoholic fermented apple cider.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from mead to roast. Bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.
Yeah.
So we've got 4 different recipes that we're doing this month for Dry January, where we're doing non-alcoholic fermented beverages. And this one is a cider, and this is from the book that we've been doing everything else from. Kombucha, kefir, and natural sodas. If you're interested in grabbing this book, it's got all kinds of recipes in here. There'll be a link in the description for you to pick that up. And this is kind of hard to call a recipe.
Yeah, it's just pouring and mixing. It's like mead.
You're using the microorganisms on the apple skins to ferment this, which in all likelihood is going to be yeast, but there's going to be other little things on there too. We may get a pellicle in here. Could be fun. And so you core and cube the apples and put them in with apple juice, and that's it. You wait 3 days and then you bottle it.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Look for bubbles. We try to hope there's not any other things like mold, and go from there. So I'm going to pour in the apple juice first. And this is another one of those recipes that wants like an open ferment, but we're gonna do it in a sanitized demijohn because we're using modern brewing practices. Oh, you should, hang on. Put the lid back on and shake that up. There's a bunch of stuff at the bottom. You wanna make sure you get all the good stuff.
I trust you. So we're making a third of what this recipe in the book calls for.
Whoopsie.
That's fine. But we're still gonna, so it calls for 51 ounces of juice and 2 apples. We're gonna use 32 ounces of juice and 2 apples because honestly, it's apple juice and apples. How could that possibly change the flavor of this at all?
Right.
Okay, so she had a meal. I made apple cider. This is gonna sit in here and ferment naturally for the next 3 days. Then we're gonna bottle it. Wait a couple of days, and the bottle will burp it in a swing top bottle for a couple of days. So, beginning to end, this is about 5 days.
Hopefully.
And drink immediately.
Yeah.
And I feel like with the amount of stuff in here, I know it'll break down a little bit, but probably gonna have to swirl it a couple times a day to keep it wet.
Yeah.
So we don't get a dry cap on top.
And because it's naturally fermenting with the microorganisms that are on the skin of the apple, we made sure to get locally sourced apples from a local orchard in the hopes that that means that there's not wax or other chemicals that have been sprayed on the apples that you might find in a grocery store.
Yeah. They're Arkansas black apples, I
Yes.
believe is what they're called. So
From Live Say Orchard in Porter, Oklahoma.
So they should be really tasty and fresh. We'll fade to black here. We'll show you some B-roll of the maintenance of this, and then we'll be back to try it out. This is probably the most basic recipe we've ever shown on this channel. Chop up apples, put in apple juice, drink.
Yeah. You could do it extra, in fairness. You could do it the most, which we did not, and you could press or juice 6 pounds of apples.
If you had a juicer, you could run them through a juicer, or you could steam juice them, you know. But this works, and so we'll see how this is.
Yeah. It says after a few days you should see bubbles, indicating that fermentation is going well. You might also see a thick foam developing on the surface. The cloudier your apple juice, the thicker the foam. And I believe we have a foam.
We got some thickness.
Cider makers call this the brown hat, and it indicates that your cider is ready to harvest. Should be pleasantly sour.
Did you hear that hiss?
Yes, I did hear it hiss.
Want to give it a sniff? See how you like that?
It smells really appley.
Yeah, I noticed that this morning whenever I was manipulating it around.
I
guess it smells like apple juice.
It is apple juice, so it shouldn't smell like anything other than that. Line your funnel with cheesecloth and strain the drink into the bottles, leaving the dregs in the jar.
Okay. This is in alcoholic fermentation. This is not proper practice. You would never do this.
Why not?
Because you would oxidize it.
Uh-huh.
But we're apparently not concerned about that because we're going to be drinking this tomorrow.
Right.
Or the next day. 24 to 48 hours,
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and just do this because that's what the recipe calls for. Now, we just close this up. Yeah. And let it do its thing for 24 to 48 hours.
Seal the bottle and set aside for 24 to 48 hours at room temperature, releasing a little gas from the bottle every day in order to control the pressure. Chill in the refrigerator and serve ice cold.
So...
And that's for a sweet cider. Like, we want this to be not alcoholic, so...
Yeah. So I'm going to put this, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to put this in a bucket with a lid on it. Just in the off chance that it develops so much pressure that it explodes. Because that's definitely a thing that can happen doing this. This is not necessarily safe. I would never really advocate for this process except because we're doing the recipe.
How would you do it differently?
I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this at all. I would.
But how would you make a fermented soda then? You wouldn't make a fermented soda? You just get some carbonated water and some syrup?
I mean, so we were talking about this on a Zoom call earlier, me and some of the guys from Mead Stampede, that what we would do is go buy some apple juice, fill up a 5-gallon keg with apple juice, and then throw it in the keezer and carbonate it, and that would be a carbonated hard cider, or soft cider, carbonated cider.
Right. But it wouldn't have probiotics.
Does this have probiotics?
It might.
It's got active yeast. You know, carbonating
it
in
makes
something
you really
like this
nervous.
with a whole... She's nervous too. Carbonating something like this with a whole lot of sugar still in there with, particularly here, we have no idea how aggressive the yeast are on here because it's natural, it's a wild ferment. And so we're just kind of rolling the dice. So we're going to burp it until we go to bed. We'll burp it every couple hours. And then I'll keep it in a bucket overnight and burp it first thing in the morning very carefully. And then we'll burp it throughout the day. And I guess tomorrow night we'll do a tasting.
Yeah. I don't think we need to worry. I think you're right that you should use caution. If you're not prepared to be babysitting, you should not do this.
I'm a very risk-averse person.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like doing things like this. If you look up people making fermented sodas on like TikTok or Reddit or whatever, often they open this and it's just a out the top, which is just inches away from it just having been an exploding bottle.
Right.
And so our goal is to avoid that. But say you hurried up and got busy and forgot this was sitting back here. All right, so we'll come back and taste this tomorrow.
Sounds good. I'm
or
excited.
maybe the next day, depending on how much carbonation we've got in there.
Yeah. We're drinking cider.
We're drinking cider.
We're drinking cider, the soft cider that has been carbonating for 24 hours.
Naturally fermented.
Yeah, using the microbes on the apple peels. Nice hiss.
I think this is gonna work.
Okay, it didn't explode.
This is looking like
I hope it's good.
carbonated cider. It smells good.
It smells a little funky. Not bad funky, just like a little bit fermented.
Yeah, it does. It's sweet.
Yeah, I think that's delightful.
It is very sweet.
I mean, it's apple juice.
Yeah, no, I'm
It's
just
carbonated apple juice.
I'm so used to dry hard cider that a sweet, not hard cider, it like surprised me for a second. What? Yeah, this is sweet like apple juice. This is not.
Yeah.
There's no indication that this has done any alcoholic fermentation, but it's creamy almost.
Yeah. No, I can taste fermentation.
Now that my palate has acclimatized to the sweetness, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Sparkling apple juice, basically.
And it's like really well carbonated, which again, you know, you have to be mindful of, you have to be careful, you don't want it to be over carbonated and explode, but like it's kind of mind-blowing to me that this is just natural yeast that was on the apple peels.
Apple skins, yeah.
This is so fun though. Like what if we What if every year when the apple harvest begins, I don't know when that is, presumably early fall, we like make it a tradition to make a bottle of sparkling cider?
Yeah, just one, because we may not get to the rest before they explode.
This is where you're like, it should be hard and dry. In my head, it should be still. Like drinking carbonated apple juice is weirding my brain out.
Yeah, I can see that.
And particularly like, I mean, this is like if you had put it under pressure, like if you had put it in the keg and put CO2 in it, like it is very well carbonated.
I don't pick up much fermentation funk. I mean, to me, this tastes like sparkling apple juice. There's not a yeastiness or a breadiness or really any kind of funkiness. And I think it's because we caught it, like the book said, right at the right moment that it goes into the bottle before any of those major processes start kicking off. I guess this was a success. So apple soda, naturally fermented, with 2 ingredients. Well, thank you for watching. You can follow us on all the things and join our Discord server. And that was Baby Most asking you to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications.
Thumbs up.
So, and hit thumbs up down there. Anything else you would like to promote? Your SoundCloud or?
No, I don't have one of those.
Until next time, happy fermenting and cheers.